Yeah, look, it was a momentous announcement and has given real gravity to the upsurge in equity valuations that we've seen since the beginning of the year. And from last year, it's really taken another notch above now, with a global giant like Microsoft signaling to the world that to drive its AI ambitions, it needs to source energy. And of course, with the global mandate for clean energy, there's only one place to go, and that's uranium.
Welcome back to Metals and Miners. I'm its founder and its host, Gary Bohm. Today we have a fantastic discussion lined up, and we're fortunate to have with us Richard Homsany. Richard is the executive chairman of Toro Energy Unlimited, an ASX-listed uranium development and exploration company with projects in Western Australia. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Gary. Thanks for the invitation.
So let's begin with big tech. Big tech is on the hunt for nuclear energy to power their current and future data centers. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and more, they're all outwardly searching and acquiring. Microsoft made a big deal with Constellation Energy just last week to reopen 3 Mile Island, and they signed a 20-year contract with them to purchase 100% of their energy that facility can generate. What does all of this activity by big tech say about energy needs over the next several decades and the role that nuclear is going to play in this picture?
Yeah, look, it was a momentous announcement and has given real gravity to the upsurge in equity valuations that we've seen since the beginning of the year. And from last year, it's really taken another notch above now, with a global giant like Microsoft signaling to the world that to drive its AI ambitions, it needs to source energy. And of course, with the global mandate for clean energy, there's only one place to go, and that's uranium. So we expect that this deal will have a ripple effect. Everyone will understand the true value of uranium and its role in the global mandate to get to net zero, and hopefully cheaper electricity and energy for the world at the same time.
That's wonderful. So, Richard, CNBC, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, and other business media, they're publishing reports, doing interviews, and broadcasting various uranium-backed stock reports on their channels these days. We haven't seen this type of coverage on uranium for years in the media. What does this media activity and the coverage say about where uranium is in its own cycle?
Yes, so what you can infer from that is that uranium is an undeniable part of the investment industry going forward, and that the demand for nuclear energy is only just beginning to surge. Like we're in for a long, sustained run now with uranium prices, and obviously with the need for not just more energy, but clean energy. That's a very important goal that the whole world has signed up to. And with companies or countries rather committing to triple nuclear capacity out of the GOP conference last year, it just shows that they know that the only route to clean energy and at the same time cheaper energy is uranium. And it also means that countries like Australia that are well endowed with uranium, where Toro is located, the most endowed country in the world with uranium, Australia has a big part to play, and therefore Toro, in fueling these ambitions of the companies and countries that are committed to these goals. So it's a really exciting time, and we're only at the beginning. There is so much more to come.
Yes. So last week it came out that Wall Street's now backing nuclear energy in order to triple the global output by 2050. 14 huge global banks, including Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Citibank, Bank of America, among others, they're all involved. Because the banks are involved, is it now essentially game on for nuclear energy and the uranium market?
Yes, so for long-term industry, uranium industry guys like myself, we know that this was going to come at some point. Obviously, we had a bit of a dip with Fukushima. That was a sustained decade-long bear market for uranium. But it's just so obvious to those in the know that this day would come. And the fact that these global financial institutions and banks are jumping on board, and you've got the endorsement of Microsoft, like I said, a global giant with such a global reach. Everyone knows Microsoft. It means that, yeah, for anyone's investment thesis, you must look at uranium and anyone in the nuclear fuel cycle. So happy days ahead.
So, Richard, the G7 Western governments, they've all pledged to triple nuclear energy by 2050. You mentioned that earlier. The U.S. recently announced that they're breaking ground on something called Project Pele, a mobile nuclear reactor for energy resiliency. Most of the governments have had their own announcements regarding nuclear reactors and energy, with government, big tech, banks, and the media all on board to ensure nuclear's rise and success. Essentially, is the runway cleared for takeoff for this sector to gain large institutional investment that will essentially create a rising tide raises all boats scenario for both uranium producers and the juniors?
Look, definitely, because nothing incentivizes companies like us to keep exploring and spending shareholder money on looking for minerals like uranium. More than a strong price. So the fact that we've got this interest and the fact that there's an understanding now that it's not just these big nuclear power plants to fuel cities, but rather the small modular nuclear reactors, that small modular nuclear reactor space is kind of untapped. There will be a lot more demand for these reactors going forward. And as I said, as the price keeps rising, as the difficulty with getting uranium mines permitted at the moment, and the inability to just, flick a switch and turn on supply. So on the supply side, all of the fundamentals are there. And now with the demand side coming in with, as you said, mentioned these governments that are looking, and also now Microsoft, we keep going back to Microsoft. It just shows that demand side is just waking up.
So the last two uranium bull markets, they ended with a parabolic spike higher and then a subsequent slam down. How do you see this uranium bull market unfolding? How long do you see it lasting? And do you see it following a similar curve?
Yeah, look, there's always a chance that we will get a bit of a retrace or pullback. You might naturally expect that could occur, but really the long-term trend, both the short, medium, and long-term trend are all on the upside. And yes, look, we will. I think, we're just at the start of a parabolic move, and like every little move, we'll have a little pause at some point naturally. But uranium prices are here to higher uranium prices are here to stay for longer now, more than any other time in history. You've seen physical funds get involved in the market to pick up uranium inventories around the place. The decommissioning of nuclear weapons has mostly been exhausted. And so where is the supply going to come from? So, as I said, the supply side factors are already there. It's just that now we're getting front page news of nuclear revival around the world. It's all pointing to a continued upward shift. And as I keep saying, it's only the beginning. We haven't even really started yet. What we've just got now is a greater awareness. And as those who previously weren't invested in the sector or weren't seriously invested in the sector, it's not just electricity, it's also clean energy. Uranium fueling nuclear power is an undeniable thesis.
Richard, in your analysis, at some point in the future, after the sector is significantly inflated higher, capitalized, et cetera, do you foresee uranium stocks behaving more like utility stocks in a portfolio, where they're a solid, stable, defensive asset that spits off a nice, healthy dividend, that the majority of investors should hold for the long term?
I do, because energy security and energy diversity is, and particularly the former, is more important than ever. We've seen a bifurcation in the market between Eastern supply, with the US attitude towards the import of Russian nuclear products. So now countries that have, or rather companies that have uranium projects or are involved in the nuclear fuel cycle somewhere in Western countries, you can expect to see them being re-rated and trading at a premium, given these energy security imperatives that are quite obvious to us all.
So uranium supply risks seem to be increasing, with Kazatomprom, the largest global uranium producer, missing production estimates repeatedly and lowering production estimates for next year. And they've done this several times, combined with the increasing and rather large supply deficits that are currently existing with uranium. Are you expecting a panic push of the price to obscene highs at some point in the next, I don't know, 12 to 24 months due to all the demand needs that are current and increasing?
I think there's no doubt that that is possible, if not probable. As I said, as people unpack this industry more and funds start being diverted into this nuclear energy space and the investment around that, like the thematic is just going to grow and grow. Like I can't see anything coming on stream that would retard that growth. The risk to supply, yes, because in Kazakhstan they're having issues. It just shows it's not easy just to ramp up production in uranium, just at the flick of a switch. It takes time. So as I said, the supply side factors are all there, and you can only expect demand now, particularly with the commitment by these countries to triple nuclear capacity, and around the world, the nuclear energy debate in those countries where it's still topical and not quite socially accepted, or at least governments fear losing elections on the back of a nuclear mandate. So in Australia here, for example, we've got our opposition, federal opposition government now with a strong nuclear mandate. I was fortunate enough to sit next to the opposition leader here and hear his views on nuclear, and he is really supercharged about getting it into Australia, a country that shied away from even talking about it. So as I said, the demand for it is going to go parabolic. And yes, we have structural deficit, and we can expect permitting in the future to perhaps be a little bit more relaxed. But for now, it's still a strict permitting regime, and supply is an issue. And it's all, everything points to the uranium price going higher and higher, as I said, over the medium term, long term, and quite possibly we get another parabolic upward movement in the very short term.
So, Richard, you've spoken about these increased energy demands that are coming. How much of a jump in demand in energy is expected over the remaining of the decade due to things like AI, data centers, EVs, population growth, economic improvements within global populations in places like India, Bitcoin mining, and the electrification of literally everything? And how much of a role do you expect nuclear to play in meeting these growing energy needs that are happening globally?
Well, I think nuclear is just front and square of it all. And again, what drives the price of uranium? The demand for nuclear energy. As you get into countries that have their own AI ambitions and opening up data centers, yes, in places like India, and with the global, the net zero by 2050 being subscribed to by the world, there is no alternative, no known alternative other than nuclear. So it's not just, I said, the big power plants to fire up, nuclear power plants to fire up metropolises, but it's this AI, this data center, this next wave of demand for uranium. We think that the small modular nuclear reactor has a big role to play in that, So again, I don't think that's very well understood. I think people are looking at the cost of these small plants and making uneducated assumptions about them. But as I said, as it gets more sophisticated and the investment dollars turn towards this sector, it's just going to be a very, very bright future, and a long-term bright future for all, in particularly us in uranium at the mining level. Yeah.
Yeah. So with all this great news in nuclear and uranium and the ongoing supply deficit, are you anticipating the investor sentiment to swing strongly positive here sometime in 2024, or when are you expecting to see a change? Because it has been, from a sentiment standpoint, depressed for quite some time now over the last, 4 to 6 months.
Yes. So look, we've also, as I said, I alluded to the social acceptance of nuclear as being an issue in a few countries and quite a few well-developed countries. But as people's power bills continue to go up, the price of electricity continues to go well in excess of CPI, and particularly for businesses, let alone the middle class consumer. We're going to see that there needs to be a circuit breaker here. We need not just cleaner energy, we need cheaper energy. And the fact is that like a place like Australia is a very secure politically, very stable geographically, has a high standard of living. And because we have the most uranium resources in the world, it's time to convert those uranium resources to reserves and get it out to the world. But again, that takes time. And in the meantime, we can expect uranium equity companies like us in the uranium equities sector to continue to increase in valuation as all of this becomes more mainstream in the news, as a lot of this gets talked about on chat rooms, that there has to be a circuit breaker somewhere. So, it's a really good place to invest in the nuclear sector right now, because, as I said, we're just at the beginning. I don't think we've even really started.
So do you see a sentiment shift occurring sometime in this calendar year, 2024?
Look, with that news coming out about Microsoft, you couldn't get a brand ambassador for nuclear and therefore uranium than Microsoft, really. Right. 3 Mile Island has had its stigma over the years for obvious reasons, but, it was nowhere near, not even close to what happened in Chernobyl. And, people, I think the social acceptance will be there, and therefore the investor sentiment will just continue to escalate off the back of that.
Are you seeing any changes in the institutional investment side?
Well, yes. In my case at Toro, I am presenting to more institutions in my investor roadshows, non-deal roadshows. There's an interest now in looking at companies where there's a disconnect between value and in terms of its share price, market capitalization, and what the true value of the project is, and what cash returns it can yield, even at a modest uranium price. You can imagine if we're selling uranium in the triple digits, all of a sudden, a lot more deposits become economic. So, yeah, I just failing to see where we'll get an event which retards all of this sentiment that's growing by the day.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm really looking forward to getting to more of the Toro story here, but I have a question for you about the global economy. Richard, in your analysis, if the global economy slides into recession, what do you see as the impact being on uranium equities?
Look, everyone needs to have a hot meal, have a hot shower, and also have heating, air conditioning. Like, you can't abate the demand for energy, right? Yes, businesses may not develop and get financed and expand and grow, but there's always going to be an increasing demand for electricity as the global population rises. So yes, the recession may have an effect on many sectors, but I think we are, as you said, a defensive sector. There's always going to be a need to flick on a switch somewhere or to generate a photo using AI that consumes energy. The living standards generally are rising. So countries that were once seen as undeveloped or poor are now growing, and that will sustain this industry. So it may not grow in a recession to the extent that one would always like to see, but we don't think that this will have any material impact in the medium term anyway on what we're doing.
Okay. So, Richard, share with us, if you would, the Toro story. Tell us about the assets, what's in the ground, what stage the projects are in, when they'll be in production, and give us a solid rundown, especially of the Wiluna project.
Sure. So, Toro's flagship project is the Wiluna Uranium project. That's where the production profile is. That project now, we did a resource restatement, which we published a couple of days ago. We've got over 73 million pounds of uranium and about 90 million pounds of vanadium as a byproduct credit on that project. It's in a location 710 kilometres northeast of Perth, the capital of Western Australia. Outside of the Wiluna project, we've also got exploration projects, which also have a uranium endowment of roughly 40 million pounds of U3O8. But in the production project, Wiluna, which is comprised of 3 deposits, Lake Maitland, which has been our focus, Lake Way, and a centipede millipede, basically twin deposits next to each other we regard as one deposit. So on that project, that was permitted, that Wiluna uranium project was permitted back in 2017 at state and federal level. And the legal position is that our permits are currently in force. However, one of those conditions was that we had to substantially commence that project by January 2022. With spot prices of uranium in the high teens, low 20s, there's no chance of substantially commencing a project that would be uneconomic at those prices. But unfortunately, we had a change in government and therefore a change in government policy on uranium, and meant that we couldn't proceed to develop it by the required condition time. However, when government policy permits, and we don't think that's going to be in the too distant future, either by a change of government or a change of government policy, we can retrospectively amend that condition to a later date. But the better news out of that is that in the rush to get the project permitted before government policy changed, we've spent the next 7 years. So January 2017 was when the state permit came in. We'd already secured the federal permit. We've spent our time not just waiting for the uranium price to rise, but trying to make meaningful, substantial increases in value of our assets. So we examined a new metallurgical process. We examined steps around beneficiating the product, desliming the product, washing the product, and we spent a number of years doing that. And we were receiving research and development rebates for the research and development work we were doing. And we were able to make a big breakthrough, particularly at Lake Maitland, which is clay dominant and therefore most amenable to these changes. And we repriced the whole project enormously. So on the cost side, we made such substantial gains at lab scale level that it meant that the uranium price didn't have to necessarily get to as high as we would have previously thought to turn the key and get going at Wiluna. So that's been a great achievement by the team at Toro. Lake Maitland also has a Japanese joint venture. Itochu and a syndicate of nuclear power companies out of Japan have a joint venture hanging off Lake Maitland, and they can acquire 35% of the project for $39.6 million when we make a final investment decision. The NPV of Lake Maitland and Lake Maitland alone is 832 million pre-tax Australian, and that's just only one of 3 deposits we have at Wiluna. So just on the one project, we've made these wonderful financial gains, and to the point we're now well funded to do a pilot plant, which we will construct very shortly, and we will run through that pilot plant all of the ore at Lake Maitland, or the variable ore types at Lake Maitland, Lakeway, and Centipede Millipede. So basically, we're taking it to feasibility study. This is an advanced project. We have an exploration profile, but yes, within the production profile at Wiluna, it is most advanced. We haven't spent time waiting for the uranium price to rise. As I said, we've been proactive. And, this is an exciting time for Toro, because the benefits of that R&D work are materialised in value. If we can get the government policy to change, it would be wonderful. We re-rate the story quite significantly.
So what's the anticipated time frame? If I know that you're dependent upon government permitting, but if you gave a best guess, what's your best guess at a time frame for going into production?
So if we had government policy on our side, from here on in, we could probably be in production within 3 to 4 years. If we were in Canada, in the Athabasca, it would probably take us from here twice the time to get permitted, if not a little bit more. We are an advantage because we do have existing permits that need to be, like, just 1 or 2 conditions need to be refreshed. But we would now make some other changes to the permits to relocate the processing plant and have a license to extract the vanadium, amongst some of the changes. So there's a framework for a government that is a bit on the edge with uranium. We have that advantage of having some framework that we can put to them to work with them to cause them to change their mind or change their policy, rather. So Wiluna also has around it some gold and nickel prospectivity. So in the slumber years for uranium, we explored them. We got ore grade results at nickel, and we've got some very encouraging gold results. And we're looking at spinning out that gold and nickel assets, possibly a couple of exploration projects on uranium also, into that vehicle in the short to medium term. Interesting.
So, Richard, it was announced the other day, you had touched on Lake Maitland. It was announced the other day that Toro Energy is seeing a 17% resource jump at Wiluna following the Lake Maitland upgrade. Can you speak into that upgrade for us?
Sure. So what we did is we actually restated our resources at a lower cutoff, because we did a scoping study at Lake Maitland, and the rim cutoff of our proposed pit was just over 109 ppm, yet we were publishing resources at a 200 ppm cutoff, a higher cutoff, which is not congruent with the work that we've done at scoping study level, which disclosed to us quite clearly and quite emphatically that our project has these cost advantages and these cost reductions in CapEx and OpEx that were so significant that we can mine more of that resource. So as our peers are quoting at 100 ppm anyway, this exercise of uplifting Wiluna by another 17% or 20 odd million pounds is a fantastic result for us. We are really encouraged by that breakthrough. It means that our team is getting rewards. It also coincided with the 31% uplift in vanadium pentoxide of 21 million pounds. So in addition to the 11 million pounds of uranium additional, that 17% uplift, we have, established another pillar for the feasibility work that we're doing. and hopefully we can deliver a feasibility study in a shorter amount of time, given the vast volume of work we've done. It really is important to note that, as I said, we're not just waiting for the market to turn, which it is turning now anyway, or for the uranium price to go parabolic. We are making meaningful strides daily in making sure that we deliver the most financially advantageous project for our shareholders.
So as the price of oil has come down quite a bit over the last several months, and the price of uranium shot up in 2023, and it's stabilized over $80 since then, has these improved dynamics positively impacted the state of your balance sheet?
Look, we are able to attract funding. Anytime Toro's had to go and do a capital raising in the last couple of years, and moreover, earlier this year, we've found that there's been significant demand there. We've been oversubscribed. So we're careful not to dilute our shareholders too much along the journey. We'll raise a responsible amount of capital as we go along. So yes, our balance sheet is very healthy. We've got our last disclosed cash position was just short of $12 million Aussie. So we're well funded to deliver on our objectives, and we're happy with the state of our balance sheet. Yes.
So, great. So, Richard, do you ultimately see bringing Toro Energy to production as a standalone producer, or more in the position to be acquired by a larger producer? What's the proposed game plan here?
Look, with the renewed interest in the sector, anything is possible on the corporate front. That's not for me to say one way or the other, but certainly we are very clear in our message. We want to be a producer. We will work adjacent to government policy to get there. We're not just going to squirrel our dollars away in a bank account and not spend them and wait for the tide to turn on government policy. We're out there daily. We're on the attack. We're playing offense, not defense. So we'll continue to play offense and get on with the business of turning Wiluna into a production story when regulatory conditions permit. We're optimistic on that front. We think there is a state election coming up. The same party that's in power is the same party that's in power in South Australia, a neighbouring state, who are pro-uranium. We think once the election comes and goes and all of that noise dissipates, that there will be a meaningful response by, if it's the incumbent government, so be it. We think there'll be a meaningful response, but we know for certain that if the government changes, the opposition is clearly coming out and saying uranium mining in WA is all systems go. So, I think we won't have to wait as long as we thought to see a breakthrough there. But definitely it's to go in to produce this thing ourselves.
In your view, is there a potential black swan scenario that you are being mindful of that can derail the historic nuclear energy and uranium story that we're all watching unfold?
There isn't. Typically, it's an accident, right, that causes everything to go completely to custard. Given that, some would say Fukushima was a natural disaster event, not a nuclear event. I think the only black swan event we could see is if for any reason there is a safety incident, even in in an Eastern country rather than a Western country, or an African country rather than a Western country, that could put a handbrake on things. But really the demand is just, as I said, that's the side of it that will pique everyone's interest, because we now have a global mandate to decarbonise, right? Unless that mandate changes and does a complete U-turn, and I can't see how that would happen, we're here. It's not, I can't foresee a black swan event.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Before we wrap up here and I ask Richard our final question, I want to point everyone over to our Substack. It's free. Go to metalsandminers.substack.com. We post free content on the consumer economy, markets, artificial intelligence, individual metals and miners, and all the expert interviews that we conduct, just like this one. They're all up there. And when you subscribe, we want to give you a free gift. It's a report that we wrote. It's based on the important Ray Dalio foundational premise. It's titled, "If you don't own gold, you know neither history nor economics." This free gift is a must-read for everyone on why we all should own gold. So head over to metalsandminers.substack.com, put in your email address to subscribe, and receive the free gift on us. Also, I'm positive that you've enjoyed the conversation with Richard as much as I have. Please let him know by hitting the like and subscribe button and leave a comment below the video. It's now time for our Golden Nugget segment. Richard, let's discuss internal management share purchasing. A few weeks ago, it was announced that you and other management have increased your insider purchasing of Toro Energy shares. First, what are you seeing either within your company or within the industry that's led you and other insiders to make the additional stock purchases? And second, do you see this as a trend within the industry right now where other company management insiders are also adding more stock through their insider purchasing within their organizations?
Well, we think Toro leads the way because more than any other uranium equity, we have, where we've seen a bit of liquidity or even not so much liquidity, we've seen that there's a disconnect between the value of our project and the value of our company. And we're happy to pile in and buy. And that ambition still remains. One of our larger peers, there was some selling by management, which didn't go down well, but generally you do not see that. But I would anticipate that with the disconnect between value and market cap for some companies, which is accentuated at Toro, and therefore lies in the opportunity for new investors, that directors and management would be prepared to see it. So we've said that we're doing a pilot plant. We're also doing a study to see if Lake Maitland, processing operation at Lake Maitland, can take ore from our northern deposits, Slakeway, Centipede, and Walloona, and we can actually deliver a much more valuable project, grow our NPV. Whilst I've communicated that to the market at large, there is a significant opportunity to grow the company that way. We don't have a project that's sitting on the shelf in a nice bow, waiting for financing and pricing conditions to change. As I said, we're playing offense, and as a management, we're backing ourselves to deliver on that offensive and create more and more value. So there are value levers coming up that'll be demonstrated, and we're showing our commitment to the company by putting our own money into it. So, yeah, thanks for raising that point, Gary.
Well, this has been fantastic. Richard, thank you so much for coming on to the Metals and Miners podcast, for being so generous with your time, your analysis, and your ideas. It's been wonderful to spend the time with you. Would you please share with the viewers any important message you want to leave with those tuning in, where they could learn more about your work and how they can connect with you?
Sure. You can go to our website and you'll get my contact details. I'm available to talk to you at any time. If you wanted to talk to our technical guys also at any time, we're happy to have that conversation. We talk to shareholders all the time, and we're engaged. So you can either send an email through info@toroenergy.com.au, which will make its way to me pretty promptly, or you can ring my office, +61 8 9213 3000, and you'll get put through to me, or at least leave a message and I will return your call.
Great. I will put all of this information up on the screen. There will be links in the description area for everybody to click through. Everybody really needs to go in and examine Toro, take a look at what they're doing. Uranium is on the move. Uranium is here to stay, and Toro is a piece of the pie. So everybody take a look and follow Richard and follow Toro. Richard, thank you for coming on. I look forward to having you back on. And everybody else, thank you for watching.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I want to point everyone over to our Substack. It's free. Go to metalsandminers.substack.com. We post free content on the consumer economy, markets, artificial intelligence, individual metals and miners, and all the expert interviews that we conduct, just like this one, they're all up there. And when you subscribe, we want to give you a free gift. It's a report that we wrote. It's based on the important Ray Dalio foundational premise. It's titled, "If You Don't Own Gold, You Know Neither History nor Economics." This free gift is a must read for everyone on why we all should own gold. So head over to metalsandminers.substack.com, put in your email address to subscribe, and receive the free gift on us.